Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey.
You can't stop me. You don't got the power. Shut me down. That's not an option. I'm my biggest problem. You don't got the power. Shut me down. That's not an option. You can't stop me.
John.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my friend.
Hello. I want to tell you something. I listened to one of your podcasts on the way home yesterday. I was on a road trip and I listened to you on the Biz Dad podcast. And let me just tell you how appreciative I am for a podcast co-host, partner, business partner like you, man. Because I just sat back and listened and I was like, man, I can't believe I get to work with this guy on a daily basis. And I don't even exploit all the things that he does really, really well. You're just such a value add. And listening to you talk about partnerships, it made me feel truly grateful for what we have here on the show. So thanks for being on another podcast and let me hear you outside of this realm.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, John, and thank you for that. I'm not a big fan of any sort of recognition in any form. It's sort of the humility gene that was embedded in me when I think I inherited it from my grandfather and some of the things that he used to say. But I'm always very appreciative when people say stuff like that. And it was a different experience being on the other side of the table, fielding questions about myself and talking about my journey. You look back and it's kind of fascinating to think about the things that have influenced your life and how you got to this point and the things you're thinking about now and what was important then and what's important now. So yeah, I'm glad you listened to it, and I'm thankful for our partnership as well, John. And and we wouldn't be where we are without each other. I think it's just it's been a journey together into the unknown world of podcasting. So with that said, let's welcome everyone back to the Second Act with Michael and John.
Yeah, welcome, guys.
We have another incredible guest today that we'll get to in just a second.
I thought you were going to say we had another winner of...
We do have another winner.
Oh, we do.
Yes. For those folks who are following along, each week we're paying it forward, our version of basically paying for somebody's coffee or groceries in line. We're sending out these e-gift cards once a week. It's a little something to help, and it goes to a completely random person. You go to our website, michaelandjohn.com, and there's a giveaways tab. Sign up there. No strings attached, and lucky winners each week get it. And this week it's Evan. Evan, congrats on getting your e-gift card. And then we're like peak summer here, John, and it always, for those who have families and kids, when you get towards end of July, early August, and you're trying to figure out things to do, and you're fighting weather, air quality concerns. If you're here in Colorado, you can only go to the zoo or the Museum of Science so many times, depending on how old your kids are. So there's just activities. You really have to start to get creative. And I'm talking about some of this because our guest today has a lot of experience working with children, so I'm excited to get into that. But I don't know if you're fighting the same battles, John.
Well, yes, we are. We just got back from another road trip up to Salt Lake City and back through, Western Colorado. So we're seeing it on the road, but, when I put the kids in the car for 8 hours at a time and throw on a couple books on tape, it fixes the problem for about 8 hours. And then we all get sick of each other and listening to books on tape, and we want to jump out and go run around. But summer is about to wrap up, and my kid's biggest fear is upon us, which is school starting.
School starting again.
Which I'm just happy because now I get a quiet studio again at here at the house. But yeah, it's always fun. Fun to start the summer, have so many plans and so many things you're doing, and then wrap it up and think, man, where did all that time go? But look at all the things we got to do. So
Yep.
yeah, with that, why don't you, enough about us, right?
Enough about us. Yeah.
Kids.
Rambling
Why
on
don't
here.
you introduce our amazing guest today?
Absolutely. Today, we welcome Terra Scott to the show. Terra is the former president of HealthPRO Pediatrics, where she oversaw 26 clinics and over 100 school contracts nationwide.
Bam.
Over the course of her 25-year career in the pediatric therapy space, she has served her community directly by providing physical therapy for children and indirectly by helping more children and families through the business she founded called Milestone Pediatric Therapy Services, which focused on physical, occupational, speech, and behavioral therapy in the early intervention, schools, and clinic settings, driven by a philosophy centered around collaboration, compassion, and comprehensive quality care. Terra sold her business in December of 2020 to HealthPRO Heritage, where she then continued to take on larger leadership roles. Her journey began with a deep passion for children and helping others. It was a career path that started with babysitting at a young age, and then inspired by her earlier experiences, Terra pursued physical therapy, volunteering at outpatient clinics and hospitals, and eventually solidified her commitment to helping children through her work in this space. Today, Terra calls Colorado home, where she enjoys spending time with her 4 kids and husband, taking in a round of golf, or enjoying all the great outdoor activities Colorado has to offer. Welcome to the show, Terra.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Absolutely. So Colorado, another Colorado guest on the show. We have quite a few. I think it says a lot about our state and our amazing people that we have here. But yes, Sarah, how are you managing the family of 4 and the husband over the summer?
Yeah, I have 3 20-year-olds. So they are kind of doing their own thing and working, but they always need you more than you would think at that age. And then I have a 12-year-old, and he's the one that you're exactly right when you said the end of July hits. And he's like, I have all these things in my Amazon cart we need to buy for school. Yeah. And it's, a lot of things we really don't need. So, yeah, it's trying to keep him busy. And then one of his best friends who he was hanging out with in the neighborhood just went on a 17-day trip. So he was bored because he was waiting for his friend to come home. And he's home now, so that's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you manage to golf with 3 20-year-olds and a 12-year-old?
Well, that's tough. I started golfing actually in April when I made a career change. And at that time, he was in school, so we could go to the driving range and practice. And then as soon as he got out of school, we've been trying to get him to do it with us. So just this past weekend, he went and did 16 holes of the 18. Okay. So at a small course near our house. So it was great. We're getting him into it.
How's your golf game coming along?
Oh, man. Well, we'll say this. I'm going to an adult PT right now for my back due to my poor golf swing.
Very well.
Golf is one of those sports that I don't know if anyone, even the pros ever truly master it. They have their own bad days, but it's one of those sports you can take with you, I think, throughout your life. It's a fun thing to do outside and spend time with friends doing. But yeah. So Terra, let's start with the beginning. Where did life begin for you, and this take us through that journey and some of the important memories from childhood that led you into babysitting and then physical therapy and then starting your business?
Yeah. I grew up in a very small town called Florence, Colorado. So I am a Colorado native.
Wow.
But very small. My dad was a business owner. He owned a construction supply business in a nearby town called Pueblo, Colorado, which people are more familiar with. And then my mom was a teacher. So I was always exposed to kids, and she actually became a special ed teacher while I was growing up. So I also got some exposure to kids with special needs. I knew I never wanted to be a teacher. I didn't want to handle that many kids at one time in a classroom. But I did always love kids. And I would say my father taught me a lot about owning and operating a business. I worked for him in the summers, filing, answering phones back in the day when nobody had cell phones. And everything was on paper. We had calculators or adding machines in his office. But then I guess I just always gravitated back towards kids. And so my parents also never just handed out things to me as much as I like to hand out things to my own kids. I had to work at a young age. So I started babysitting and making money at age 14. And just continued down that road. When I was 16 in high school, we had to do a project on pick a career and report on it.
Okay.
And so I really didn't know what I was going to choose. And a friend was choosing PT. So I said, okay, well, that looks good. It's active. I'm going to do that. I didn't know that could be related to kids at the time. But then that's kind of what started me volunteering in some outpatient clinics, hospitals, just kind of seeing what the profession was like. And then that solidified it at a very early age. I don't think any of my 20-year-olds knew what they were going to be and still don't know what they are going to be at a young age. And I think that's okay too. But I was more goal-oriented. I would say my father instilled a lot of confidence and perseverance in me and always told me, Tara, don't get nervous. Everybody puts on their pants the same way in the morning. You can do that just like anybody else. So I always refer back to his quote. And I even said it to him not that long ago. And he said his dad used to always say it to him. So kind of just passing that confidence down. And then I went to DU for my undergraduate degree. And at DU, I really found this advisor who was, it takes me kind of takes me to where I'm at today and solidifies the fact that any time you make a connection or a relationship in life, you never know where that's going to take you and what the importance of that is. But she definitely helped me through my 4 years of college, undergrad, knowing that I wanted to go to PT school and that there were certain prereqs that I had to take and certain GPA that I had to get and volunteer hours, and really helped me to take the right classes at the right times. And she ended up having a child with special needs that I babysat for, which was very interesting during my college years. Another way to make money. And then when I was applying to PT programs, I had to take the GRE, which is a exam. And I was having difficulty getting a high enough score on the vocabulary. I was more science, math oriented.
Okay.
And so I didn't even have the minimum score to get in, but I did get an interview, which I still think is so important, to be face to face with someone and build a rapport and for them to see what kind of person you are. And I really credit the person I interviewed with was the clinical coordinator of the program. And she was the clinical coordinator all the way until this past year when she retired.
Oh, wow.
But Jenny Weiss Rodriguez. And I really think that me building a connection with her in the interview really got me into the program, and then continued to have a relationship with her and continued to get the pediatric hands-on experiences that I needed for my career later on, because she knew all along that I wanted to be working with kids. So I feel very fortunate for those people that have come into my life. And there's been quite a few of those mentors. So
I want to say, Tara, my wife is a teacher, and this last year had 27 kids in her classroom.
That's a lot.
So I understand, the special heart you have to work with kids. But going back to your upbringing, and seeing your father run his business and being in the back end and seeing the work that goes into that, How did that resonate? I know we're going to get into your entrepreneurial undertakings, but when you saw him working day in and day at night, you know, did you ever think, man, I want to be like my dad, work for himself, or I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to do these things later on? How did that resonate with you?
Yeah, it was really funny because at the time, I think he made it look easier than it actually was. So he had this big computer, back in the 90s in his office that was huge, and he would always look at the weather on the computer. So my impression was that he sat in his office, huge office, nice, was looking at the weather, and then he bought people food. He loved feeding people. So he would go around and say, okay, it's breakfast burrito time. Let's buy some breakfast burritos for everybody. Oh, it's time for lunch. My view was he did a lot of food. He watched the weather. He checked the mail and, played some golf. And so I thought, wow, that's awesome. I want to have a business someday.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I owned my own business, it was just super fun to talk to him about just employees and making payroll and all of the things that go into every single business, no matter what industry you're in. And then I realized all of the things that he went through, and he would tell me more stories about, oh, actually this was happening and we couldn't collect money from these people. And then this was happening and this employee got mad. And so it was really interesting to see the similarities and things we went through, but I never knew that when I was that age.
Yeah. That's funny. I've asked Everett what he thinks I do, and he says I work on the computer as my job, which is kind of funny. I love kid responses. They're the best.
My 12-year-old recently, and we'll get into this later too, what I'm doing now, but when he sees that I'm packing up a bunch of toys and things in my car, and he's like, so you just play with kids all day? Wow, that's fun. That's easy.
But I think the important things that you didn't realize at the time that your dad was doing and that you do is building that connection both with your employees and with your customers or patients or those receiving care in your case. Mm-hmm. And you do that in sort of non-business ways, buying burritos or, having events outside of work to get to know people on a personal level, because it's so important, especially if you're spending so much time with folks on a regular basis. And, saying this out loud and having this conversation, I got to think about, how can I educate my son, who's going to be 8 soon, on these important aspects of life, but in a way that sort of relates to him at his age, not put it in all this business lingo that he may not care about right now.
Yeah. The other thing is when you go around to homes like I do, providing therapy, you see a lot of different social economic classes and backgrounds and different cultures and people. And it's amazing how I've been out of the treatment for quite a while. It's amazing how quickly you forget because you're just in a bubble in your office on Zoom calls all day. Yeah. And I do want my kids, all of my kids, my 12-year-old especially, to know that he's pretty fortunate, and there are a lot of other people out there having lots of different struggles, and so there's lots of ways we can all help them.
Yeah. Have any of your kids expressed any kind of interest in pursuing a similar path to you?
Well, my boys, they're twins, and they're very entrepreneurial and have been from a really young age. Okay. But they're definitely not, so far anyway, in a helping kind of profession like I am. But at a very young age, I would say 7 or 8, they were trading scooter parts, dirt bike parts, working on scooters, fixing them up, selling them. I've had to really, really train them on safety in the community because they were posting at an early age, this scooter or this BMX bike is for sale. Yeah, come to my house. I've got some guy coming at 5, Mom, we got to get home. I'm like, what? You can't have people coming to our house that I don't know. We have to meet them in a public place. And so, yeah, they've done that at a very young age. And then they're both kind of in a trade right now. One of them is installing windows, and the other one is doing refinishing garage floors.
Okay.
Wow.
He's also been an auto mechanic for a couple of years too.
Okay.
So I think they're constantly talking to me about, well, my boss makes this much money off of these windows and he only pays this much for them and he's only paying us this much. So, geez, he's bringing home a lot of money. Mom, we could have a business like this. And I keep wanting them to get the experience in the field before they're handed a business to run.
Yeah.
Because I think that's helpful.
Absolutely.
Well, Tara, take us back. So I want to know this transition or the path that you're on. You're at DU. You've got this very formative experience that your father gave you at a young age. You're babysitting and kind of, getting yourself out there with experience and working with families through babysitting at their house. And now you're in school. Do you see yourself right away or towards the end of your time in college thinking about entrepreneurial path, or where does Milestone come in, and how did you get there from school?
Yeah, well, how did I get there? It was hard to get a pediatric position right out of school, so I had to take a more general position at Valley View Hospital in Glenwood Springs. And then one of my professors actually worked at Fletcher Miller School, which is a school for special needs kids in Lakewood. And she was moving on to a different position. And she notified me that she was leaving and that she thought I could take her position. So I ended up, that was my first in to pediatric therapy. And I was really grateful for that. So I worked at the school for about 3 years and really had some great mentors there, but started having my own kids. And I would say at that point, I knew I needed a more flexible schedule. I had, surprise twins and after having a 2-year-old. So I had 3 kids under 2. And I needed to figure out how I was going to still maintain my career and do what I love to do, but be a good parent and be home with my kids and raise them. So I started becoming an independent contractor with different community center boards. Those are the agencies like Developmental Pathways that serve people with disabilities for their whole lifespan.
Okay.
But I've concentrated on seeing kids who were 0 to 3. And so it was nice that I was a contractor. I had my own business and I could set my schedule around my own kids' schedule. And did that for quite some time. I started taking PT students after a while because I felt like they taught me things just as much as I was teaching them.
Yeah.
I loved having the new ideas that they were coming out of school with. It was challenging me a little bit more. And, I got to a point in my life where I had a PT student that was just excellent. I trained her for about 4 months and she was graduating and she said, "Tara, I think you should hire me." And I said, "No, I don't want to hire you. I do not want to have a business. I never planned on that." That's another life lesson I've learned over and over again. You just can't have a plan all set out because it's never going to go as planned.
Yes.
But right around that time, I actually was going through a divorce. I did not have health insurance. And I was 35. I thought, I'm healthy. I exercise. I don't need health insurance. I'll save a little money here and I'll get it later. And at that time, then I had a life-threatening blood clot. So I was in the hospital, had to have a stent and surgery and all these things and racked up a huge medical bill. And then she was still over here saying, "Please hire me. Please hire me." And I kept thinking, I don't want to do that at this point in my life. I have a lot going on here, and I don't know if I'd be a very good boss. But really, it came down to a lot of encouragement from other people and them saying, "Hey, she really is a good match for you, and this could be a way for you to pay off all of these medical bills you have. So I hired her, and that was the first employee I had. She was an independent contractor, and then slowly it snowballed from there. I wanted to hire another PT, so I reached out to the PT program. I never really posted positions. I just hired people that were recommended to me, and I felt like I got great quality people. And someone was recommended to me. She was awesome. And then her sister was an OT, graduating from OT school. And she said, I've always wanted to work with my sister. Would you hire me so I can work with my sister? And I said, well, I guess so. We'll have OT and PT. So it just kind of snowballed like that. And I had quite a group of therapists that were going out to people's homes. But in 2017, we really saw the need, myself and all of my employees, to have a clinic space. We just heard from many parents in the community, there's a waiting list everywhere. We don't know what to do. Our kids are graduating from their early intervention services. So at that time, gosh, I refinanced my house, took out all the equity, and put that into starting the clinic space. So I got an SBA loan and went through that whole process, and then hired speech therapists for the first time so we could have the whole team under one roof and provide all those services that the kids needed. So
accidental entrepreneurship turned into this incredible nationwide organization helping children with special needs. I mean, that's a great story. And, coming back to the things you learned from your dad about building connection, at least hearing you share your story, it became obvious you definitely took in some of those lessons, because anytime I hear someone sort of proactively saying, I love working with you, can I come work with you permanently now? And then hearing about people getting referred into you and your organization, those are all endorsements of your leadership and stewardship of the business. So congratulations on those accomplishments.
Thank you. I am really passionate about the leaders that I've developed underneath me. And honestly, I still keep in touch with so many of them. I just went to a happy hour on Friday, actually, with 3 therapists.
Okay.
2 of them are leaders. One of them is just a therapist that worked for me for a long time. And it was just, I was sitting there listening to them talk, and one of them has been 9 years with me, 7. And to hear how far they've come and grown as individuals and professionals was just, I was so proud of them. I was just sitting there watching them. I'm so proud of you guys.
Tara, I love when I get to hear people who don't want to be entrepreneurs work their way into entrepreneurship and go through the hiring, conversations. I don't want to hire anybody. Now you're hiring sisters and referrals, and you're expanding. And what I also always delight in is hearing about entrepreneurs taking out SBA loans, because that's when they really put themselves on the line. That's a very personal thing when you take out that loan and you put your house up as collateral, or you refinance, or you do these different things. And it just shows the grit of entrepreneurs and how really active you've got to be in the expansion and growth of your business if you want to succeed. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because most people say, I just kind of stumbled on this thing and I had to do one thing after another, and I was just making it up as I was going. And the point of this all is, you didn't read about any of this in a book.
No.
Or you didn't go to a course that says, here's how you expand your practice. And you just had to learn the knowledge as you went. And so that's commendable as well. So
a lot of that knowledge then took me into the next career path too, because when you are an entrepreneur, you do have to fully learn the billing if you want to collect the money and continue to run the practice. And then you have to fully learn how to deal with the homeowners association and the building where you purchase space. And how to look at a lease and negotiate that. And so there is like a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
Honestly, I put up the Cove base in the first clinic myself at 2 a.m., while I'm waiting for my daughter to get finished working at Freddy's, her first job. Then I had to go pick her up because she was only 15 and couldn't drive. So I'm over there putting up the trim, and I could barely walk the next day. My muscles were still sore. So I don't know. And my husband too, my current husband, who I have my fourth child with, he did all the construction on the first clinic because, contractors were busy and they were like, we can't get out there till November. And I said, no, we're opening in July. We're not doing this. We have to get this finished. Wow. So he was over there, blood, sweat, and tears too.
I love your mindset. There doesn't seem to be like any sort of, this isn't going to work, or, I'm really stuck. It's just like, I'm going to figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a little bit about how you just developed that? I mean, you put yourself in these uncomfortable positions, starting a business, expanding the business, taking out a loan against your personal assets to grow the business, constructing things, you and your husband, to help the business get off the ground in the time frame that you want it to. Like, where did all of that come from? I know you talked a little bit about your dad's entrepreneurial spirit.
I don't know. Like you said, you have an inborn gene. I maybe would say I just have a positive gene.
Okay.
Where, some people I've worked with say, how can you be so positive? I want to, at the same time, though, kind of check myself and be realistic. I have to take myself back sometimes and go, okay. And actually, I've had to listen to people over the years, even people who I was, in charge of and leading. If they said, if I said, hey, let's roll this out. I have an idea. Let's roll it out next week. They're like, we need 2 months to implement this. I'm like, okay, I don't agree with that, but I got to take myself back because they're probably right. Really, because I am a little bit, maybe not too positive, but because you can't be too positive.
Sure.
But you do have to be realistic and sometimes do things in a more thought out, planned manner in order to be successful in the end. So I think that's maybe something I've learned.
So you go from putting up trim in 2017, learning how to negotiate rates and find a place for your business, to selling, is this right, 3 years later?
I sold the business and I opened the clinic in July of 2017 and then sold the business in December of 2020. So it's about 3 years.
So three years you give birth to this new business. You grow it. You are thriving on many accounts, and then you go to sell. Tell me about the start of the business and the kind of that growth window, and then what it's like to sell 3 years later.
Yeah. So I would say for the first 6 months, it was really, really stressful and not having that more planned out mindset that I later learned would be beneficial. Hired X number of people because I thought, phones were going to be ringing off the hook. We opened the doors and then boom, here's all the people. And it did take a lot more time than I thought to build up. And we did get clients right away, but we definitely didn't have enough business for all of the people that I hired. So definitely had to pivot and have some of them go back out to homes and do early intervention until we could get busy enough in the clinic for them to come to the clinic. But, I learned a lot of things about everything under the sun as far as running a business, managing employees in an office versus them being out on their own in the field. And, sitting in my office knowing like, okay, they're all on the clock and I hear them talking about tacos. When are they going to stop talking and do work? I'm paying them. But yet, wait, this is good for them. They're bonding. They're a team. They need to like each other and work together. So I really had to figure that out and then figure out how to be productive myself in an office environment when people were interrupting me constantly. So just lots of different things. But I was always the sole breadwinner in my family with 4 kids. And so over time, I'm doing fine, but I'm thinking, I don't have a retirement saved. How am I going to pay for my kids to go to college? It was very hard to run the business. And so probably 6 months in, I had a home healthcare company approach me wanting to purchase the company.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? You can take it. It's really hard. I don't want to do this anymore. But, when I started to really talk to them seriously, I didn't see a place for myself in their organization. It just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
So I kept doing what I was doing, and we continued to be more and more successful. I really did always focus on the relationships, the care, the quality, the families, and then the numbers were they would follow. I didn't really focus on an accountant or a bookkeeper or all of these things that I should have probably also focused on at that time. I had another company, HealthPRO Heritage, approach me in 2019. So that was like 2 years after starting the business. And at that time, another connection, I developed a relationship with the SVP of Mergers and Acquisitions. And he had just started his job there at HealthPRO Heritage also. So he kind of came in halfway through their talks with me. And really, in the end, he just said, you don't want to sell your business right now. You're not going to get the amount of money that you need to get for it. And I know you like our team and our philosophy, and we are a company run by therapists, which you see yourself fitting into. Because I guess my thought process was I want to be around like-minded people. The company was very entrepreneurial. They had grown by a lot of different acquisitions. So a lot of their leaders were business owners prior to being in the company. So I really did connect with them. And I felt like, oh, wow, I won't be out on an island anymore being a business owner all by myself. I'll have people to connect to. But we really stopped the process because he was very honest with me. It just wouldn't be the right timing. And so it was very, very, very disappointing, I would say, for me. I was like, I don't know if I can go through this whole thing again emotionally, but he said, let's just keep in touch. We actually exchanged a lot of books, Audible books, leadership books, communicated over the next year. And then COVID hit, really.
Yeah.
And that was a whole shift. We had to shift to telehealth therapy. We had to close our doors for 2 months and then reopen. I had to change the pay structure for the employees. But during COVID, I had an opportunity to purchase another practice in the Denver area.
Okay.
And that was just an awesome opportunity as well. That practice owner had other things that she wanted to do and focus on, and she just didn't want to run the business anymore. So that's how we got our second location in Denver. But throughout that whole time, I was consulting with the HealthPRO SVP of Mergers and Acquisitions, like, okay, I guess I'm buying the business. You're not buying it, I'm buying it. And I need help with this. I tried to read Acquisitions for Dummies. That didn't work. That's a really boring book. So he really did mentor me through that process. And then about 6 months after that was all finished, and he said, well, I think it's the right time for you to join HealthPRO. And so then I went through the whole acquisition and selling my business. And I think I was very fortunate in that getting that second location pretty much doubled the business.
Okay.
And then allowed me to work with him and get the value based on, during that time, they were doing a lot of valuations based on projections, because a lot of things were different during COVID and we could project what we could do after COVID, but we really didn't know. So I was able to get the value I wanted and solidify my ability to pay for my kids' college and provide for my family, which was really awesome. And then I had the opportunity to make an earn out that second year after that.
Wow.
Nice.
Which again, you are fully equipped to understand, and all that training that you had beforehand was used in the acquisition of another company and then working on a bio, right? You came fully prepared.
Yeah. He couldn't pull a fast one over on me because he already told me all the things.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
No, we're still friends. We're very good friends. He's a really awesome person. Working in another company now, very successful. But, you know, even the companies I consult with now, he's like, oh, yeah, let me take a look. I'll look at it and see what I think. And just a really great resource.
Awesome.
Well, Tara, I'll come back to one thing. Bonding over taco talk is, you never want to interrupt that, because that's a very important discussion. And people are very passionate about where they get their tacos and what they have to accompany their tacos. So it's great that you let them sort of run with that one. But your story, I think, is one of my favorites we've had on the show, because you sort of found yourself in entrepreneurship, and you've, in a very actually complicated space, the healthcare space, the caregiving space, you're dealing with claims and insurance and really acute needs of children. And you're not just helping the children, but also the parents who are having to manage life in a way that they didn't expect. And you've grown this business, you acquired a business, you sold your business. It's just an amazing story.
Yeah.
And so you get to the point where you've sold and you're into it a couple, 2-3 years now. And sort of what's going through your head now that you're part of a larger group, and maybe an investment group at that, who's looking at things from different dimensions that maybe are outside of like the core caregiving perspective of what you're doing. And just talk us through some of that and what's coming next.
At first, it was really great because I could say to my team and to the families we serve here in Colorado that I'm still here. I'm the leader of the division. So I do have decision-making ability. You won't see a lot of changes. You know, I felt like, and I had regular meetings with the CEO at the time, and I told him I treat all of the clinics across the country the same way as I treat mine here. I feel ownership of them, and I want them all to have the same vision and mission that I had here. And that's to have all of the families feel like we are a resource to them and an extension of their family and a support to them. And so that's kind of how I ran things and supported the therapists and supported the families. But you're right, there's a lot of different people involved when it's a large corporation. We grew to a pediatrics division of about 84 million. And we had about 1,400 employees across the country, and that's just the pediatrics division. And then they had other service lines like long-term care and senior living and home health that were run by other presidents, and then a board that oversaw. So there are a lot of layers to management and a lot of goals, a lot of financial goals. And sometimes all of those goals, I feel like, kind of cloud my original mission and values and get in the way of some of those things. And so I think too about owning my own business, and I could have an idea and execute on it. Whereas in working for a corporation, you are really limited to the corporation and your values and ideas aligning with the leadership in that corporation. So we just got to a point where over this past year, the CEO was replaced and a lot of the C-suite was replaced. A lot of different changes happening within the company. And it got to a point where I really had to do some soul searching, because just like building Milestone Pediatric Therapy here, I felt like I had built that division all around the country. And I had put a lot of time and effort and into it. I had a lot of relationships all around the country, and I do have money invested in the company. So there's a lot of things that were keeping me there. But in the end, I really did have to do some soul searching and read some books and talk to some people, a counselor who is a life coach too. I'm not ashamed to say that, just having a different perspective on what is important in life and where do I want to be. And I really was at a point where I was traveling a lot. I was so away from my 12-year-old, sometimes for 3 or 4 days, sometime at a time, and sometimes for 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
Oh, wow.
So that's really a lot of travel. And then when I wasn't traveling, I was in my office for 15 or more hours a day. I wasn't sleeping at night because I was dreaming about work, thinking about work, living and breathing work at all times. So definitely had to take a pause and really think about where I wanted to be in life. So I made the decision to make a change.
Would you say, Terra, that you were approaching burnout at a pretty quick pace?
Yes, definitely. And it really, I am able to, like you said, I do have grit and perseverance, and I'm able to buckle down and make a commitment to something, and I don't like giving up. But when it starts to become, when I can really see that I'm becoming someone who I'm not, or I'm forced to make decisions that I don't align with, that's where it kind of crossed the line. And I had to say, wait a second, this is actually physically and emotionally killing me, and I have to make a change.
Wow.
So that self-reflection that you did, I mean, you probably could have powered your way through it, but inside it would have been destroying you. And you made the conscious decision to step away. But there must have been some thoughts going through your head like, if I step away, I'm leaving behind all that, I've spent this time building this amazing team, this amazing caregiver ecosystem. Help our audience reconcile what's going on in your head and then finally making that leap into your second act here.
Yeah, I read the book that was recommended to me, Quit by Annie Duke.
Okay.
And I'm not saying everybody should quit. Everybody should not do what I did. But it was just really eye-opening because it talked a lot about why someone will stay with something to their detriment. And, I had all those things. I had money invested in the people and all of the time, and that I built it from the ground up, all these things that were keeping me there. But it really does talk about being realistic and practical and setting goals that, you should achieve. And if you don't achieve them, you've got to recognize like, hey, this isn't working or it's never going to work. And one thing is that I had a girl that I mentored a lot and love her to death. She's an awesome employee. She worked her way from a front desk person at Marriott all the way to like the director of operations of our pediatrics division.
Wow.
But I just love her. And she and my daughter would always say the same things to me. And they would always say like, I think we're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel soon. Or, and I would say that to them all the time too, when they were like saying, should you be doing this? Yes, we've almost got this done. And then things are going to calm down and I'm going to have a balance and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then one day, pretty, close to when I made the decision too, I said that to my daughter and she said, Mom, you've been saying that for 3 years. It's not going to change. And I'm like, you're right. That's what the book says. It's not going to change. I'm the person that needs to make a change. So I think those were kind of my final thoughts as I did make the decision. And then it was definitely one of the most emotional decisions I ever made. And the Monday after, I was done on a Friday. The weekend happened. It kind of felt like the weekend. Okay, it's the weekend. And then Monday starts And all these people are reaching out and calling and texting, and that was awful. I've never, I mean, I cried and cried the whole day. And my husband was like worried. He said, "Oh no, did you make the wrong decision?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't make the wrong decision. I'm just sad."
Yep.
So kind of like jumping off a speeding train and like, "Oh no, what am I going to do now?" So that's a lot. It's very stressful. So I can empathize with anyone who is in that part of their life and trying to figure out what they're going to do and how to make it meaningful to them.
You know, Tara, I'm just impressed because, you know, as we're talking, it seems like every move that you've made, you've never been fully prepared for. And some of the hardest decisions people have to make is when they're going into the unknown. And we fight to gain as much information, as much control, as much of the advantage as we can have before we go into that decision. But here you are time and time again, being faced with decisions to start, to finish, to grow, to sell, you know, and you're never fully prepared, but you seem to never be deterred by not having all the information. Your strength is continuing to move forward, continuing to move in the direction that you think is best, whether you have all the information or not. And so that's what I'm taking away from this conversation is just your determination, go back to grit and the will to succeed, the will to grow for the benefit of others, the will to grow for the benefit of your family. And so I commend you on those life lessons that you're taking along with you. And it's compounding, right? With everything you do compounds off the last thing that you did and the growth that you experienced. And so I just, again, want to commend you on this life that you've lived and where you are at today, because it's sometimes hard for people to understand how you just continue to proceed without having all that information. And you seem to make quick work out of it. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things I've contemplated doing in this time, but I really had to take, I would say, 2 months, all of May and June to really focus on my own health, my family, spending time with all of my kids, reaching out and reconnecting to a lot of people that I hadn't spoken to in a long time because I just didn't have time. And ultimately then had to say, how do I want to design my life? And I don't ever want to lose that balance and feel regretful at the end of my time. I actually lost my dad in November and then, had an opportunity that whole month before to talk with him about his life and his stories and his wisdom. And he gave all of my kids advice. And I just know that he wouldn't want me to continue doing what I was doing and not putting my family or myself first. So I've applied for some corporate jobs. There's that one piece of me that likes that challenge and that pressure. And then I've also thought, no, I can't do that right now in my life. I've done some consulting with some other private practices that I really love. I love still being involved in the business. And I think that's maybe the balance that I need is helping other people do it well, giving them tips and tricks, even helping them sell at some point if that's the right thing for them.
Nice.
But then I also went back to just treating kids. So I've been doing it for 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
I'm driving to homes and relearning all these things that I used to do with the kids. So it's really, that is really rewarding. And for now, I think it's a great balance to give me some control over my schedule and time with my family.
It probably warms the soul getting back to your roots and helping the kids directly. And, we're getting a little short on time here, Tara. As you're exploring a bunch of different fronts now in your second act, consulting, helping out kids, and spending some quality time with your family and taking care of yourself, we always like to ask our guests what advice they want to leave our audience with, some practical advice people who are contemplating or just getting started in their second acts.
I would say give yourself grace. Take time to write out your personal and your professional goals, and then find a second act that aligns with both instead of placing one at a higher priority than the other.
That's great advice.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Finding that passion, if we're chasing a title, chasing a dollar, chasing, something that's not organic and ingrained in us, there's going to be burnout. There's going to be another disappointment down the road. And so, especially when you're going into your second or your third act, after you may have achieved those titles, achieved that other substance, really finding something that grounds you and is deeply rooted within you. That's where the success truly is going to be. I think that's the nail on the head. So I, again, commend you for doing that. Terra, for listeners who want to learn more about you, maybe follow along in your journey and connect, maybe for questions that they might have in their own development, where is the best place for our listeners to get a hold of you or to find out what you're doing?
I honestly would give everybody my email address. I don't have a website at this point again, but they could reach me at tscott@infinitepediatricpartners.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that we throw that link in the show notes for anybody that wants to connect with Terra, and I think that's incredibly valuable. I've been on a couple podcasts and I've given out my personal phone number or personal email, and the connections that I receive and the people that want to ask questions, just one, it's a joy to be able to tell them about your own story and kind of help them in their growth. But for those personal questions to come at you, that you can truly provide value in those people's lives is what this show is all about. Helping others that are behind you a little bit, for a few, a couple of steps behind, help them in their journey. And man, I just thank you for giving out that email and, for being open for people to follow you.
You're welcome. I would love for anybody to reach out to me. I would love to connect.
Awesome. Terra, your story is going to inspire. There's no question about it. And John and I are excited to see what comes next. I think we're all connected on LinkedIn now, and we're all local. So there's probably an opportunity in the near term here to get together in person at some point.
That'd be great. I'd like to meet you both in person. It's been great talking to you.
I could actually probably use some speech therapy as I struggle to be on these podcasts. So I'll welcome any recommendations you can throw my way, Terra.
Okay. Will do.
Amazing.
All right. Well, Michael,
John,
another great episode.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate so much the guests that we're bringing on, and I look forward to the next one, man.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Thanks, you, Terra, for being on the show.
Thank you.
This was amazing. All right. Till next time. See ya.
Yep. We'll see you guys.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.